Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Mortals and Angels by Bethany Summers. And this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Muriel reclined his massive form on the huge granite stone, seemingly shaped to accommodate him through prescient nature in anticipation of his imprisonment there. The outcropping of stone was forged over uncounted eons by this world's sun, wind, violent storms, and the lashing surf against the cliff face rising regally above the magnificent Pacific Ocean. Gazing out over the seemingly endless, always restless depths, its surface sparkling like priceless jewels beneath the midday sun, Muriel dipped his chin in deference to the Creator of all things. Even the children of man who ventured up to this remote spot on this insignificant little earth paused when they beheld the mysterious and contradictory palette the ocean presented. 1 minute still as glass with the light of a bright sun striking and seemingly shattering on impact into twinkling stars, dancing along the crevices created by the yoke of the tides dictated by the moon. The next, a wild, untamable force that battered the coast and swallowed homes and ships and the foolish who braved its depths when the Pacific was in a vengeful mood. Muriel sighed at the evidence of the constant reminder all of creation was bound to the will of its creator. Some willingly obedient, others less so. He was still paying the price for being judged one of the latter. How long would he be stuck in this place, surrounded by those who, one could argue, were the source of his exile from the heavenly realms? He didn't expect to receive an answer to his silent, grudging question. It worried him a bit when he caught himself thinking in terms of time and space. Was his punishment then to include the loss of all memory of his former self and his exalted place in eternity? He was saved from reflecting on the consequences of the dismal possibility when he was joined on the lonely gathering of stone by his brother Daniel, who, as if sensing his sour mood, dropped in from eternity to check him. Muriel found himself conflicted by his brother's presence. On the one hand, he welcomed Daniel's animated company to enliven his barren existence. On the other, his brother's lively, non-judgmental company only served to remind Muriel of his own exiled status. Daniel was one of the obedient ones. Before he fell with the others, Muriel used to mock his brother for his unswerving, unquestioning alliance to the unseen hand and will of creation, along with his willingness to blindly follow orders without needing to know the reason and justification for them. After Muriel's uncountable millennia in his current state, he had yet to reach the conclusion Daniel had been right, but there was no denying his brother's current circumstances were far superior to his own. "What are you doing here?" Daniel asked lightheartedly in greeting, even though they both understood he didn't require an answer. Everyone knew what Muriel was doing there. Still, he was glad for the distraction and appreciated his brother's efforts on his behalf. So he replied with grudging honesty, "Serving my time out." Daniel turned to him with ready amusement in his golden glance. "Again? What did you do this time?" In answer, Muriel lifted one massive shoulder in a slight non-committal shrug. Same old," Daniel remarked, shaking his head. "When will you ever learn? No interfering with the free will of our younger brothers or the divine will." "So the asshole whose free will I interfered with was going to blow up church and kill a few dozen people, but I'm the one who's in timeout while he's rewarded with a get out of jail free card?" Muriel challenged, still unable to control his outraged resentment at being punished for his good deed. "You run your argument up the flagpole?" Daniel asked, finding amusement dancing in his gaze. "What do you think?" Muriel replied. "What they think of it?" Daniel couldn't resist teasing him. "As you can see," Muriel acknowledged with a sigh powerful enough to send the surf back in the direction of the depths. "Your argument is as old as time. What makes you think the big guns are going to make an exception for you?" Daniel countered. "Because I'm right," Muriel replied. "You always think you are," his brother remarked with a wide grin. Then he patted Muriel on the shoulder and advised, "Serve your time, stay out of trouble, and maybe time out will be the worst of it." With his usual good-natured advice, Daniel flew off into eternity, leaving Muriel alone to reflect on his current circumstances. No shortage of time to reflect on his circumstances, he mused, much like the prisons the sons of man constructed to hold those who violated their laws. After Daniel's departure, he decided to give his brother's advice a small amount of consideration. Why did he care if the mortals believed themselves right? What did he ever get out of helping one of them except a lecture and a varying degree of punishment? He was sick of being stuck in this physical plane. How long had it been? 1,000 Earth years? 100,000? He'd lost count. He'd never gotten the hang of time. Space he was stuck with, at least until he convinced the big guns he learned his lesson and was ready to take the next step towards redemption. God only knew, literally, what hoops he'd be forced to jump through to get himself back to the good graces of big guns, as his recently departed brother referred to them. On this little world, they were known as the Archangels, the supreme administrators of the universe. His brother, Michael, oversaw the Milky Way galaxy, which included his current place of exile, Earth. Mariel didn't see much of him. He was always off doing whatever it was the big guns did. Yet no doubt it was more entertaining than his own little tasks he was given to prove he learned his lesson after the big revolt, resulting in the big fall. Thus, these endless tests to prove he was a good little angel and would never again question the divine will. He imagined the consequences of this latest setback would mean being sent for additional remedial training. Any further lapses, and he risked being sent back. To the fires of hell, the mortals feared. No angel of hell was significantly worse. To whom much is given, much is expected, and vice versa, who used with an other side. He was in no hurry to revisit its agonies. Mariel was so absorbed in his reverie, it took him several minutes to become aware of another consciousness skating along the edges of his own. Surprised at the intrusion, he adjusted his focus, seeking its source. Not one of his own kind. One of theirs. He generally blocked out the mortal's tedious, self-absorbed thoughts, if they could even be deemed such, but this one intruded, mostly, he concluded, due to the absence of tedium and self-absorption. He took in the physical vessel of the young woman, still a girl, really, standing not many feet away from where he still lounged on his perch on the cliff overlooking the sea. He wondered what prompted her to ascend to this lonely, magnificent setting. His curiosity was followed by another puzzle he often wrestled with in his witness of the lives of the youngest and the most troubling race of the Creator's children. Why the Almighty bestowed upon humanity the beauty and brilliance of the female of the species, not to mention the innocence of childhood, he couldn't fathom. Clearly, the sons of man did not comprehend their good fortune, or he could only hope the divine's growing impatience, but not only their lack of evolutionary progress, but their apparent gleeful descent in the opposite direction. This one, retreating on a solitude, Mariel gauged to be in her teens, with long black hair, falling straight to her small waist, swaying in the gentle breeze coming off the ocean, and gleaming in the strong sun of a near-perfect day in this part of the world. The girl stood still and gracefully looking out over the Pacific. When she turned her head in his direction, as if inexplicably sensing his regard, he took note of her delicate features and true green, probing eyes. A few centuries earlier, such an innocent would have been labeled a witch by the jealous and violent, and likely burned at the stake. It didn't seem to him as if humankind had made much progress since those backward times, as the current occupants of this little world referred to them. Mariel belatedly realized the girl's direct glance failed to waver beneath his regard, and she appeared to be staring at him. Shock of the realization jolted him. He deliberately motioned to her with an outstretched hand just to see if his eyes deceived him. She took a hesitant step in his direction, her intense but hesitant gaze never leaving his. "You can see me?" he asked, stunned. The girl nodded and stopped cautiously beyond the reach of his hand. "Now, who are you?" he demanded, wondering where she came from. Mortals couldn't see angels unless they made themselves visible to them by an act of will. Her only response to his urgent question was a delicate lifting of one shoulder. He raised one brow over his intense dark eyes at her silent defiance and rose to his full height. She retreated a careful step, but didn't run from him. "I asked you a question. Can you see me?" he insisted in his imposing voice. She nodded. "What is your name?" he repeated impatiently. "Mary," she replied softly. Sighing, Mariel thrust a hand through his long dark hair. "Of course it is," he replied, wondering if he was supposed to kneel or something before the favored hand of God. He saw the girl's lips twitch before she clarified. Not that Mary. She's not here right now. She's wherever she goes when she takes a break from trying to make us see there's a better way. She's worried about us. She's not sure how much patience God has left for his youngest children. How do you know that? She shrugged. Just a feeling? So you can see angels, and you have feelings about the Almighty's remaining tether on his patience in regards to mankind's evils, and you have a feeling his favored one, the mother of God, as she's known on this little world, is on earth right now because she needs a break from her futile attempts to save mankind from his descent into eternal darkness, he demanded incredulously. The girl shrugged again. Spirits talk to me when they're passing through, like you pointed out. He couldn't deny her latter observation, as he was indeed speaking with her. Mariel could only wish he was just passing through and not stuck in this godforsaken place when it exploded in a spectacular warning to the rest of the Almighty's children. Of course, he had no way of knowing when and how the actual event would occur, but young Mary wasn't the only one who had a feeling the tether on the Almighty's seemingly endless patience between the time was wearing thin. One would have thought even humans would have learned from the flood in Noah's time, or the spectacular destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, capped off with Lot's wife being turned into a pillar of salt, for failing to heed the angel's warning not to look back. But no, humankind appeared to be set on becoming the vehicle of its own ruin. Perhaps the inevitable destruction of the planet, giving humankind's current course, was what the Almighty was waiting for. It appeared even if his own patience was wearing thin, mankind's reckless descent into a final violent desecration of all life on this little world, accompanied by his reckless disregard for the consequences of his voracious and self-destructive appetites, would soon make this world a living hell. Most of Mariel's brothers speculated man's headlong rush towards his own annihilation was what stayed the Almighty's hand. Certainly other greater, more advanced worlds bore the brunt of their creator's ire and no longer hung in their appointed place among the eternal skies. The fate of this little world continued to mystify the philosophers and great thinkers of the universes who studied such matters. Was there hope for humankind? We should be heartened by the thought, because if there was hope for the destroyers of their world and the murderers of their brothers, their abominable violence against the innocent, then surely there was hope for the fallen of his kind. At their worst, most of the disobedient of the angelic realm were never guilty of the sins of the children of man seemed to take such delight flinging in the Almighty's face. It was almost as if they were daring him to make good on his threat, to send them into eternal darkness, where there would be much wailing and gnashing of teeth. Fools. They should take it from one who was well versed in the wailing and gnashing of teeth side of eternity, and lose the arrogance and stop waving a red flag in the face of the one who created the bull in the first place. Pulled himself out of his contemplation to see young Mary still standing quietly beside him, apparently lost in her own thoughts. Are you human? He asked her, still trying to unravel the puzzle of the girl's appearance and her inexplicable ability to see and communicate with them. He turned to him with a slight smile. I think so. I look like everyone else I've come across in the flesh in this world. That's not what I meant. Clearly, you've taken human form for now. Are you a daughter of man, a native of this world, or sent? Sent from where? She asked, curious. From one of the higher realms. I don't know, she admitted with an audible sigh. I wish I did. It's not easy being different from everyone else. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing here. At least you know who you are in eternity. Living in time and space, it's confining and confusing. I have no memory of who I was before I was born here, even though I know I was someone before, and it must have come from someplace. Sometimes I dream of other places and other versions of myself, but I can't make all the pieces fit together. Can't remember my real name in eternity, but I know it's not Mary. There's only one Mary, and I know I'm not her. But you know when she's here in this world? Girl shrugged. I hear about the visions and Marian apparitions around the world. Sometimes, she began, and then let her trail off. Sometimes what? He asked, curious. Sometimes it feels as though I'm on the cusp of something, like I'm supposed to be doing something here besides just going through the motions of school and my day-to-day routine. Mariel nodded and opened his vision and took in more than just the brief glimpse he allowed himself earlier. She was right. Young Mary appeared to be on the edge of a great precipice. Couldn't see why she was sent to the soul world. The knowledge was hidden from him by a cloak of secrecy he was unable unable to penetrate. He recognized it wasn't the girl responsible for it, and wondered what she was about to be called upon to do that was so important. The powers of light took it upon themselves to shield the curious, leaving the girl herself from her destiny.